Hello, 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 and hello again. Nice to see you. I know you're going to be sharing the videos, you're going to be liking, you're going to be subscribing. You are welcome. We are on this series of pitfalls to avoid from secondary to university, and we have had a beautiful guest with us for 4 series now. This is the fourth topic, and it's going to be on reality versus ideal, student accommodation, and common mistakes or questions people might want to ask. So I am hoping you are sharing your liking and you are calling someone to, hey, come over, come and listen to this, you need this. So yes, thank you very much for always being here. Without further ado, I will call on the screen Miss Duque Bolari. What, you are welcome again.
Hello, good afternoon. Once again, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. We know we've been on a journey from how many weeks now? This is the 4th week, isn't it?
Yeah.
The 4th topic. And I'm hoping viewers, if you're listening, if you're watching the recorded video, I'm hoping you will ask questions, you make comments, and let's all learn together. So it's not a one-sided learning; it's a two-way interactive discussion. So please send your comments, send your questions if you are listening. Now, I would like to ask you to, open the floor with whatever you have for us today, being the wrap up of the whole series on journey from pitfalls to avoid from secondary to university. Over to you.
Thank you. We've covered quite a lot actually for the past 3 weeks. So I think for this week, what we're going to just be discussing is just, as you said, reality versus ideal, just sort of little tips and tricks or little things you should remember and take in general from the whole session. So obviously starting with the topic reality versus ideal, I think it's just one thing is to understand and to always expect the unexpected, if that makes sense. I think many people always go in thinking, oh, this will never happen to me, or I would not have to face the situation. And that really is the truth for many people. But I think if you go in knowing that almost you never know what could happen, and it makes you more prepared, more ready to face circumstances that come unexpectedly, and your response will be the most effective and best response. So I think if you're sort of always subtly at the back of your mind prepared for anything, whether that's taking a gap year, changing your course, or just whatever it is that may happen, it helps you. And I think that's the same thing that should be applied when you found yourself at uni, or when you found yourself on whatever course that you're doing. So just to expect the unexpected. Well, I thought my voice would have been better by now. Just some light tips and recommendations and advice. I think one thing is not to be too hard on yourself.
Okay.
Many people are very self-critical and very harsh with their expectations, and I think they don't realize they're doing better than what I think they have a very interesting perspective of how they see themselves, and they don't realize maybe what they're doing is really amazing, really challenging, or they think they should be performing in some certain way. So I think it's one, don't be too hard on yourself. That's not good for you, and that could also affect your performance in something else if you're always putting yourself down. And just take things as they come. I think manage expectations when you get to university. It's not, I feel, social media and maybe even stuff like TV and films have sort of given a false illusion to what uni may be for some people, especially since here in the UK, I realize we do consume quite a bit of American media as well. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I think people going to uni thinking, oh, uni is going to be like this and it's going to be like that. And it's either what they were expecting, the expectations were not met because they had unrealistic expectations. So I think it's manage your expectations of what you're going to be doing and what you're going to be getting out of university. That way you won't be disappointed. and just to be genuine with your experience. One thing to add to that in terms of managing your expectations is when you've gone to uni, and I know many people would have heard this maybe from their secondary school teachers saying this, especially when it comes to homework, lecturers will actually really not force you to attend your lectures or hand in work. The ball really is in your court. So I think it's to understand that I'm going into this because I have a passion or I really want to do this. And the effort I put in is sort of the effort I'm going to get back. If you're constantly engaging with your lecturers, with your tutors, with your peers, and you're doing the work on time, you're going back, studying and learning the way you're supposed to, you will get the most out of it. But if you're being very sort of, I don't care about this, you may not very well get the experience you were hoping to get. And that's not only to do with the academic side, that's also to do with the social side. I think some people, especially if you're quite introverted and reserved, it's they feel they may end up feeling a bit isolated at university. But I think the thing is to sort of put yourself out there and not to take things too personal. Your time really is what you make it. And just obviously on a side note, one thing I always do say is, like, for example, I'm a Christian, and from a Christian perspective is don't do anything that you believe will not please the Lord or go against your personal doctrinal values. So in terms of socializing, don't do anything that will make you uncomfortable. Don't do anything that will go against your faith. But at the same time, make sure you do socialize and make friends and network and connect with people, because they will also be your support system outside of maybe your parents or your guardians and the academic staff. So I think in terms of reality versus ideal, I will say manage your expectations and be genuine. Don't be too hard on yourself. And your time is what you make of it. When this is once you've found yourself at uni, what you give is sort of to a certain extent what you will get back. I think many people do not really manage their expectations with when it comes to either the social aspect or the academic aspects of university, and people really do need to sort of do that and prepare for that. That's what I'll say in regards to reality versus ideal about your life at university. I think it's very hard to talk about this because I don't know what weird assumptions some people make. I think one thing I would say is if you do have any assumptions about what life at uni will be like, it's if you know someone who's already at university, maybe one or two people, ask them about whatever concerns you have, get their perspectives. People will have differing perspectives based also on their course and the university they go to. So if you can sort of get a robust and rounded view on whatever question you have, you'll therefore be able to sort of go in having a relatively good idea, and that way you won't be disappointed and you won't be overwhelmed either. Yeah.
True, true. Thank you. Yes, I like the bit where you said, "Oh, we are in the UK. Please stop watching American films. The life and culture at uni are completely different from what is portrayed in the media and even on YouTube." Exactly. We build this castle in the air, and we're thinking, "Oh, well, at uni, I've got all the time in the world. I can do this. I can do that." And then you get there, you're like, "Oh, oh." So it's a different world entirely. And it's not all partying like some people want to portray, or it's not all 24 hours you're studying, no sleeping. It's a mixture. It's a world in its in its own, and on its own is a world on its own, and you want to make the most of it, like you said. So thank you for all your tips. You said your time is what you make it. Your time is what you make of it. So managing your expectations and not being too hard on yourself. So thank you very much for these tips. They're really helpful. Now, I think the next bit is student accommodation. So they've gone through uni. I mean, they've gone to secondary school, gone through A levels. Now they are in the university, and the other question comes in: how about student accommodation? What do you do? Do you work? Do you school from home? Do you should you be in a school environment? And if you are going to be in a school environment, How do you get student accommodation? What is the reality with living with strangers from that you've never met before, and all of that. So please dish out to us. Thank you.
I think firstly the option to either commute from where you're living or to stay in student accommodation firstly depends on what uni you're at and where you live. If, for example, you live in London and you apply and you go to a university in London, some people choose to commute because one, you're going to save a lot of money on rent. You don't have to pay someone else, and you can use that money instead of paying rent. Although you will be paying for transportation, but you can use that towards other things. So I think really one is first of all evaluate your personal circumstances and do what is best for you. But that being said, living at home versus staying in student halls, there are pros and cons of both. For example, when you stay at home, you already know the people you live with, you already sort of have a routine and an environment where most likely you do feel safe, and you can work with that. You know, you're not going to have arguments about cleaning, about food, someone taking your food or something like that. You sort of already know the people. That being said, when you do commute from home, um, there is always that chance that because you're not really meeting a lot of, you're not living with people, you may not get to know a lot of your course mates or people at your university. That could be a problem. It doesn't necessarily always happen like that. It really does depend on the individual and also the course. If you're quite a sociable, extroverted person, regardless of if you live at home and commute, you'll be able to like interact with people in your course and make friends. But if you're relatively introverted, it may be a bit difficult. But then you have societies and clubs and things that you can get into that can really mitigate that. So um, I think it really just depends on your personal circumstance and always do what is also in your best interest. Now, when it comes to living in student accommodation, I always personally recommend to live in uni accommodations at least for the first year, and that's if you there's still availability. Uni accommodations because one, even if you're not going to meet people who may be on the same course, you all go to the same university, and you're all sort of in the same environment, the same ecosystem, so it makes it easier to communicate versus living in private halls. Also, private halls tend to be a lot more expensive, and I think it's also maybe like a rite of passage to live in a university hall and just go through the stereotypical university sharing your accommodation, your space with someone else. It teaches you a lot, and there's lots of life skills to be gained from that.
True.
So most unis will offer you accommodation, and I personally recommend staying with the university also because there's added security, and also considering the pandemic situation that was going on in terms of people being able to leave and get out of their contract. Um, Whilst a contract is a contract, I feel like the university sometimes is a bit more understanding, and it may be easier to push your case with a university versus a private landlord or private accommodation.
Mm.
But there are pros and cons to both. And even when you're living in university, you're sharing your space with people you've never met for the first time. What's going to teach you is problem solving skills, number one, and how to work as a team, how to respect your boundaries and other people's boundaries. I think if you're very lucky and you get really good flatmates, all the best for you. If you're not, I think it's teaching you how to work within the circumstances that you have. And if anything ever gets too much, that's why I also say staying in uni, you can majority of the time request to be moved if you explain your situation and the circumstances which you do not feel comfortable, you don't feel safe, or things are really struggling. You're really struggling with the people you've been assigned to live with. Um, so, as I said, I think it is a test of patience, of conflict and resolution. Sometimes you can have silly arguments, or maybe it's just lifestyle and personality traits. You just don't get along with some people you're living with. But I think those skills will help you in the long run and just in general day-to-day interaction. As I said, I think you should choose according to what you can afford and what you can tolerate.
Mm.
university housing, especially for first year, you have options such as ensuite, shared kitchen. Some places all offer studios, but not. But I think don't just say, oh, this looks so pretty, I want to live here. Think about what you can afford, number one. Also, think about what you can tolerate in terms of like cleaning or getting people to do stuff. I personally have a thing where I cannot share a bathroom. So I would never apply to have a shared bathroom because the idea of cleaning up about most of the time they have cleaners, but just the idea of having, yeah, the concept of public toilets and clean, yeah, is a personal thing.
That's not
So I
reference.
personally would never apply to live in a shared bathroom. Shared kitchen I can do, but so think about also what you can, what are your hard no's, and what are your, oh yeah, I think I can
Soft
handle this.
nose.
Yes. So in terms of applying and also your whatever budget you can afford, do not choose something that looks nice because in the long run, especially if you're getting student finance, you need to make that money stretch as much as possible, and you want to be financially responsible for other things that may come up. You don't want to spend all your money on a room. You
Yeah.
need to eat. You need to maybe buy other things throughout the year. So there's that. I would say that's some of the advice I have for first year. Going into second and third year, many unis will have advice on this, and many people will be able to tell you. You can see it online. I will say your university will most likely have some sort of resource for you to help you find housing for second and third year. And I will say is a lot of people will hear this a lot is don't rush into picking the people you're going to live with in first year. Most of the time, people pick people based on who they shared a flat with or maybe friends they've made on a course. But I'm saying don't commit too quickly because, yes, you may like Holly in first semester. By second semester, after you sign the contract because you rush, you and Holly may not be best friends anymore. So don't rush into picking people you're going to live with. Take your time, think strategically. As a Christian, I'll say pray, let the Lord lead you. Um, and then find somewhere that you think is within your budget, it's affordable, and you think, okay, this is a person I can live with because you are signing a contract to live somewhere and you will be paying money. And you don't want to sign a contract and then have issues or someone try to leave at the end and then you're left with, oh, we have to pay an extra £400 because this person left. And there's lots of issues. I say take it step by step. You don't need to rush. University, it's a bit like what you said last week. Like university and education, it's a marathon, not a sprint in everything. Don't take too much time, but take your time, think through things clearly. And the earlier you start thinking and evaluating, the more easier it will be for you. And I think just a side note, don't, as much as I said take your time, don't leave it to the last minute. I think a lot of people, especially this sort of academic cohort, will say to the younger ones is learn from the COVID situation where when we went into lockdown, quite a lot of students had to go home and they found it very difficult to get out of contracts. And many of them were they lost a lot of money or they couldn't regain that. It was a very interesting situation, even in terms of feeding, isolating. So a lot of students were put in some difficult situations, not only by their landlords, but also by the university. And a lot of things were out of their control. So I'll say be careful where you pick to choose. And yeah, be careful where you choose to live, who you choose to live with, and what kind of contract you're signing. When you're most of you will be 18 and you'll be signing an accommodation contract. You will be signing it, not your parents. So if anything happens, the onus is on you. So I think it's just for you to realize that technically, as soon as you start getting to university, people do view you as an adult. So you will be responsible for every action and decision you make, whether that's signing a contract, whether that's going to lectures, doing your work, whatever it is. It's on you now. So just to learn from other people's mistakes, be responsible, and take your time when making certain decisions. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yep. So we've heard it all. Do not rush into it. And remember, friendship changes. So you can't just base your life, oh, for the whole of my 4 years, I will be with this person. And you sign a contract of 4 years or 3 years, and you end up thinking, oh, I think I've made a mistake. So do not make the mistake. That's why we're showing this video, so that you can, plan ahead. It's all about planning. Plan. If you plan to, if you don't plan, you plan to, how did they say it?
If
If
you fail to plan,
so,
you plan to
oh,
fail.
thank you. Yes, exactly. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So, yeah, these are things we need to youths need to consider before going into the university. Now, what do you think are the common mistakes as we wrap up this series? What are the common mistakes people make from their
Um,
journey from secondary to um, university?
I think looking at it starting from, this can also apply from when you're like leaving secondary school, but I say mostly at A levels, people procrastination, people leaving applications, personal statements, work experience, or just like wider reading things to the last minute. Um, I could personally say this because I used to be a master procrastinator. It's not a good thing. I used to do it a lot, and I would recommend not to do it. Um, do not procrastinate. Do not leave things to the last minute. Pace yourself. By pacing yourself, what you're doing is you're not gonna find yourself under lots of stress. GCSEs were stressful. You're not going into A levels, or whatever it is you're doing in terms of college. You're now putting yourself in an even more stressful situation. It does get harder and harder. You don't want to, the content gets harder. Do not make it extra harder on yourself by procrastinating and leaving things to the last minute. If you do things when you're supposed to, set yourself reasonable deadlines, and you pace yourself throughout that academic period, what you will find is you can actually enjoy your college, your sixth form experience a lot more, because you won't be thinking, oh my gosh, I forgot to hand in this coursework, or oh, I didn't do the reading, or oh, my personal statement doesn't sound good, and I have to submit by this and this and that and that. You won't have that kind of stress and anxiety because you'd have already done it. You'd have had people look over it. You could be like, okay, I think this is good. Oh, and I have enough time to work on my personal statement and get my homework done and do revision. So I'll say, do not procrastinate, pace yourself, because you're not really going to have an opportunity to go back to sixth form in college again, really. Some people may, in terms of retaking exams, but I think enjoy that period of time and learn as much as you can from it. And that to do that, to get the most out of it, is to not procrastinate. And I think it's also start learning to speak up for yourself. A lot of people make the mistake of, when they're stuck or confused, whether that's in terms of course content or just what to do in the future, they don't speak up and they don't ask for help. Unfortunately, people are not mind readers. We can't read your mind. There are lots of people out there who want to help, who want to provide services and guide you, but they can't read your mind, and they can't always necessarily tell if you're going through something. I wish it was a skill that we all had, but we don't. So if you do find yourself struggling, I think it's to always speak up and ask for help. And I think it's also, if you do find yourself that, okay, maybe this person or the situation is not really helping me at this point, they're not really getting what I'm saying, is don't be afraid to look somewhere else for help. Look to somewhere else for help. If, for example, you're someone at your college is not really helping you with your personal statement and you're stuck for guidance, if you know someone who's a bit older than you, someone who's experienced it, reach out, ask for help. Or if you, I know it's a bit young for people to have LinkedIn when you're around 16, 17. But if you do have LinkedIn or some certain things, or like if you're watching an educational YouTube program, maybe leave a comment and say, oh, I'm doing this at this point and I'll need some guidance on this. Would you be willing? I think there's no harm in reaching out and asking for help, because at the end of the day, it's going to benefit you. Obviously, you don't want too many fingers in a pot, and you don't want too many conflicting opinions, because not everyone actually knows how to help properly or can give you the best advice. But if you need help, I think ask for help. I think if you start also learning to ask for help from secondary school, from college and sixth form, that will also help you at uni, where lots of times people struggle with many things, but they don't ask for help, and at the last minute when they explain their situation, people are like, oh, but why didn't you say anything? It's because they didn't know how to ask for help. So I think there's no shame in needing help. Ask for help if you need it. And another common mistake I realize people do, just going off the back of that, is not utilizing their network. So for example, with this video series and other videos you've produced, this is a helpful tool, and maybe even connecting with some of the speakers you've had, that can help you build your network, and you can utilize it when it's convenient for you. Many people will have maybe older siblings, friends, or your parent knows someone, or maybe someone knows someone. You're not utilizing that network to your fullest capability. I think there's nothing wrong with reaching out for people. The worst thing they're going to say is no. And I know you're thinking, oh, saying no. It's not them saying no, it's not a reflection of you. It's just they can't maybe help you. So I think always not utilizing your network, because you never know. People may know of maybe work experience. They can help you read your personal statements. They can help you apply for something. Oh, because you know this person who knows this, they can give you advice, and maybe that advice will be something that will guide you into the maybe future career that you want to do. And they can even give you like, oh, don't do things this way because of so I've experienced it like this. It will be better and more efficient for you to do things this way. But you'll never know if you do not utilize your network. So one thing I see a lot of people doing is not utilizing their network. People love helping. I think it's maybe it's an ego thing, or it makes them feel better. So utilize your network to your best ability. And sort of going off that as well, it's another thing I notice people doing is thinking one size fits all. It's not a one size fits all path. I will say tailor it to your strengths and what you can do and what's best for you. I know I sort of touched on this already, but don't do things because it's the expected of you. Do things because it's the best. It's what will be the best for you. In terms of also, for example, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I have to do this by this, by this, by this. I have to tick a lot of boxes. And it's no, if doing this is going to cause this and this, yes, it'll be great. There are these benefits. But if it's going to maybe even cause harm in the long run, you don't have to tick those boxes. And also in terms of conventional path to education, don't do it because stereotypically this is what everyone does or everyone expects me to do this. Do what you know is truly the best for you. And I think my final advice or tip for when things goes wrong is if things do not go according to plan, it's not the end of the world. You have to learn to be resilient. You have to learn to be adaptable. You have to learn to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move forward. Like I said, you're learning resilience, you're learning adaptability. Those are very valuable skills to learn. So I think it's, if you make a mistake, I think the common one mistake I see is when people make a mistake, they think it's the end of the world. And it really isn't. I know it may seem like the end of the world at that point in time, but the world is a lot bigger and a lot wider than you think it is. And you can recover from every mistake. If anything, that mistake is a learning point and maybe an opportunity, a launch pad for you to get to where you actually really need to be. So I think one common mistake, I think a lot of people think it's making a mistake is a bad thing. No, making a mistake is not a bad thing. Obviously, we don't want to make mistakes, but every mistake is a learning opportunity for you, and also an opportunity for you to help others who come after you. So I'll say it's one of the biggest mistakes is people thinking, oh, I must never make a mistake. I must never do this. I must never do that. Well, things will happen, but it's how you react in the face of adversity and in the face of that mistake. That's what also shapes you to be a more well-rounded individual in all aspects of your life. So I think one big mistake many people make is thinking, I must never make a mistake. And if I make a mistake, it's all over. It's not. You can always change. You can always come back from it, and never to let it put you down or think you can't progress or move forward in whatever it is that you're doing. I think that will be my biggest thing, considering we are talking about common mistakes. It's not to allow the mistake to hold you down or to prevent you from making progress. It's okay, a mistake has been done. how do I move forward?
Mm.
If your goal is still the same, okay, this path didn't work out. How can I still reach my goals? What alternatives are there for me? Reaching out, utilizing your networks, talking to people, asking for help, not procrastinating, being proactive, and still reaching that end goal. So I think mistakes will happen. It's life. It's how
Yeah.
you respond to the mistake, how you move forward. That's really the big thing.
Yeah. Thank you. That's an icing on the cake. Yes. So if you make a mistake, pick up yourself and move on. That's resilience. You're learning the skills of resilience. And thank you very, very much. I'm going to be asking one question. There's no comment at the moment. There's no question by the viewers, but I have one final question, and that is how strong is peer pressure at uni? But before you answer that, I'd like to say if you're watching, we're doing this video because we know that there are people who would need this information. You don't want, I watched some videos and say, oh, things I would have loved to know before entering into uni, or things I would have loved to know before going into marriage, things I would have loved to know. So I'm thinking, okay, things you would have loved to know, let's make this so that what you need to know now, you don't have to go back and think, oh, I wish I'd known this. Please, we are doing this video for viewers, for young ones, for even those in primary and secondary, and uni, and even people who are thinking, oh, can I still go back to school? Yes, we talked about apprenticeship, we talked about so many things. So watch the previous videos and you will get a full picture of what we are informing you about pitfalls to avoid from secondary to university. So it's never too late to start again. If you've tried it once and you actually fell flat on your face, it's the time to pick yourself up and start again. Start again. The person talking to us today, she's gone through different units. She's been through so many hurdles. She came out in the end sharing her experience now with us to say, if I can do it, you can do it too. So yes, she's the best person to talk to us about this topic about pitfalls to avoid. And even after hearing this and you still fell into one of the mistakes, it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It just shows our humanity coming through at that time. So pick yourself up and try again. Keep trying until you get there. So now if you're listening, remember to like, remember to share, remember to send the message to people. Back to my question, how strong is peer pressure at uni?
I think firstly it depends on the individual. If you're a person who's a very self-assured, first of all, there will always be peer pressure, but how strongly it's felt or how it influences you, firstly depends on your personality. If you're a very self-assured person, you're very strong in your convictions in what you can and you can't do. I think to a certain extent, you may not necessarily feel that much peer pressure. That being said, sometimes people don't. Unfortunately, when we're in a society that when you do put boundaries in place, sometimes people take offense to it. So if you're very like, no, these are my boundaries. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. Sometimes some people are not used to having boundaries, so they may take offense to that. And I think it's for you to understand that. Look, at the end of the day, you have boundaries for your protection, for your personal reasons. So even if people do not take well to your boundaries, it's unfortunately that's their problem. Actually, not that's not your problem. Not
Again.
so if you have boundaries there and people don't take well or want to respect your boundaries, that's a them issue, not a you issue. But if you're not a person who's very I'll say very good at having boundaries, very good at very strong in your convictions of certain things that you can and can't do, or I think peer pressure, you may feel it a little bit. No, not a little bit. You may feel it a lot. It just depends on your. It really does depend on your personality type. I think it also depends on what the peer pressure is pushing you to do. I think that's also where you'll feel it, and also your need of acceptance. I think peer pressure mostly comes from people wanting to fit in,
Yeah.
wanting to have friends, and wanting to be accepted. And I think if you're sort of trying to discover yourself, looking for need of acceptance at university, how do I say this in the most nice way? I'll say don't do that. Don't use other people, don't use your cohort's perspective of you to validate yourself. I don't think that's the healthy thing. Do not use other people for validation. That is not healthy, because everyone has different perspectives and different opinions on things. So no matter, you cannot please everyone. That's my point. What your parents may think is okay, some friends will think it's absolutely not. What some of your friends think is okay, some other friends will think it's absolutely not. So do not use people as your benchmark. Humans are highly flawed. I would say in terms of peer pressure, it really does depend on the individual. The older you are, I think it's the easier it is to withstand peer pressure. But it really just depends on if you're a person who is like out there, can be like, no, I don't want to do this, I want to do this, or thank you for that. Let's say, for example, I think one good example is in terms of alcohol and drinking. There's a very strong drinking culture at university, and many people don't actually drink, maybe for personal reasons or religious reasons. And if, for example, you're a person who's chosen, I'm not going to drink alcohol, but your friends are like, oh, come out, let's go this, let's go that, drink, take just a sip, is whatever it is that they're saying to you. I think firstly, it's one, if you've told them, I don't think you really have to explain your reason. If people should be able to say, I'm not doing this, they should respect that. But if for one reason or another you found that they're not respecting that, I think it's to clearly take someone to the side and speak to them. And if you find yourself constantly being pushed to do something you're not comfortable with, I think it's one, time for you to evaluate who you're surrounding yourself with, number one. And also number two, do not sort of put yourself in a position where you have to even have to do that. One thing I know I've always struggled, I struggle saying no to people. So that's why I feel like I can say this. It's firstly, from the get-go, just be a bit assertive with who you are, like saying, this is what I can and can't do. Like if someone invites you, oh, let's go out to eat, I don't know, at a restaurant at Nando's, like, yeah, I can do that. But if you're like someone who doesn't want to go clubbing, be like, oh, thanks for the invite, but that's not for me. I think it's to be very clear and be like, I can do this and this with you, but I cannot do this and this with you. And if people cannot respect that, I think it's for you to remove yourself from that peer pressure and look for other people to surround yourself with. It's sometimes easier said than done. I really do understand that. But I think it's for you to be wise about how you approach a situation. So yes, there is peer pressure at university. I would probably say even more peer pressure than when you're at secondary school or sixth form, because for many people, this is the first time out of their parents' control. So they're like, I am going to go wild and crazy and I'm going to do anything I want. No, nothing held back. So I think if anything, it's even felt more. So I think that's what I was sort of saying about your hard nose and your soft nose, not only in terms of living, but in terms of what you want to do and what you can and can't tolerate with people and social interactions. If you sort of make up your mind what you want to do, and you should go into uni with that mindset. That being said, there's certain things I feel like with people you should be willing to compromise, especially if you're an introverted person. If you're a person who struggles to make friends and someone is inviting you to go to the library to study, or just go and get a smoothie or like a juice or something like that, I'm like, you should try and put yourself out in those kind of social interactions to build your network as well. Don't say no to every single thing. But at the same time, if there's certain things you have personal convictions on and those are your hard no's, it's a hard no. And I mean, it'll be okay. There is peer pressure. I think it's felt maybe a bit more at uni because, especially if you don't have your family as a support system for you to go back to straight away, it may be felt a bit more. And in some situations, it may feel isolating. But then at the end of the day, not to sound harsh, you're most likely 18 plus now. This is the reality of life. You need to learn how to deal with this and how to progress and move forward and how to interact with different people and work with different people who you may not necessarily get along with. So yes, there's peer pressure. It's felt a lot more strongly, I think, at uni. Okay. But if you're prepared to deal with it, you'll be okay. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's more like a topic on its own. It's peer pressure, experience at uni and all of that. So yeah, it's a different topic on its own. But thank you for throwing more light on that. So we've come to the end of this. Thank you. You've said so much. I can't, don't use people as your benchmark. I like that way. They say humans are highly flawed. We are all highly flawed. If we're not humans, if we're angels, then even angels fall until we get. Anyway, let me not go let me not go down that road at the moment. I don't want to preach to anyone at the moment. So we are really, really highly flawed. You don't use humans as your benchmark for anything. But yeah, you can get inspired. You can, just like we're doing the videos, get inspired. Use whatever tips you've got from this and that and different people. Use it to build yourself, to progress, to improve and develop yourself. But do not copy people because you feel, oh, this person is my perfect model of what I want to be. You get to know later in life that you've made a mistake. So please, let's all learn to let God lead us in whatever we do. So thank you very, 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 very much, times 1 million times, even 100 billion times. Thank you very much for being here to support the channel. Are there any last words you have for the people? I know we've spent so much time, but are there any last words?
I'm not too sure. I believe I may have exhausted all my tips. But that being said, in terms of building your network, I know my name has been on the thumbnail. For example, you can find me on LinkedIn. And if you ever do want to send me a message, connect with me on LinkedIn or stuff like that, if you ever have extra questions or if you have things you want to say in the comments down below, and I can always, if you have questions or any concerns, I'm always willing and happy to answer to my best ability or signpost you in the right direction. So I'll say that. Oh, you're muted.
I was about going into your LinkedIn profile just to bring it up so that if anyone wants to contact you. So let me share my screen now. So if anyone wants to contact Miss Bolarinwa for anything, you can actually contact her on her LinkedIn profile. I will go to her LinkedIn profile now. Oops. Yeah. So what name do you bear on LinkedIn?
It's actually that's me right there.
There. Yes. So please encourage her, ask her questions. She's there to listen to you. And yes, if you want her to help your youths, just have a talk with her. She's always ready to be of help. Oh, and don't forget, she is extra super busy. So you need to you know, have that in your diary if you need her to help you out with discussions with your youth or in your little community. She's always ready to help, but she is super busy, so you need to book way ahead. Thank you. So thank you, and thank you again for this. I really appreciate your time. So thank you very much, and I'll speak to you afterwards. So thank you very much, viewers. You have heard it all. I can't even add anything to it because it's all there. Part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. She has given us hard time because she wants to bless her world, give back to the community by telling the youth, you need to avoid these pitfalls from secondary to university. So make sure you share, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I will see you another time. Bye-bye.